Okay, so welcome to this pre-recorded LinkedIn session on behalf of the UL Careers Department. My name is Brendan Lally, I'm a member of the team here. I'm going to take you through how to build the best possible profile, LinkedIn profile for yourselves. I'm going to aim this very much at the beginner and also for the improver. So those of you who may have had an account for some time and just want extra tips, or for those who have been meaning to get on LinkedIn but just haven't got around to it and know that it's a good thing to do. I'll also maybe address some reasons as to why you really should consider LinkedIn for those of you that might be skeptical, and I know that's common as well. So let's just have a look at the agenda. So I mentioned there, firstly, look at why you should use LinkedIn. I've developed 12 of my top tips for building a profile. So I'm going to bring you down from one all the way down to the final 12th tip there, by the end of which I hope that you'll have a very good profile. Finally, we'll look at some products and particular functions of LinkedIn. I will say a disclaimer before we continue. I'm just going to let the camera roll here. This is the new normal for us, so any mistakes, forgive me, and it'll make it all the more authentic. So a little bit of background on LinkedIn. So the history of LinkedIn, how long has LinkedIn been there? Well, it's I suppose it originated back in 2003, and it's now 17 years old. In its first month, it had 4,500 members. So anyone with a profile is called a member. Today, they have over 660 million members. This here is Reid Hoffman. He was the founder, is the founder of LinkedIn. He's a billionaire 4 times over, the reason which he was an early investor in Facebook and was also one of the founders of PayPal, so a very successful Silicon Valley investor. I'm not too sure if he's married now, but I'm sure he's a very, very popular man. This is Jeff here. Jeff Weiner has been CEO since 2008. He gains a lot of awards for being a very popular CEO, very well liked by the employees. He recently announced that he's going to stand down this year. I think he announced it 2020. So he'll be replaced, I think, by somebody internally in the company. They have 13,000 employees in 30 cities. They're headquartered in California, and the European headquarters is in Dublin. Looking at the revenue stream there, you can see they're very, very successful. In 2016, LinkedIn paid $26.2 billion to buy LinkedIn. Microsoft paid. The reason for that is, I suppose, data is considered the new oil, the new gold, and it'll be interesting to see where Microsoft take LinkedIn in the future. So before we go into the actual platform, just to look and see where does LinkedIn sit within the different paths available or routes available to find an employment. So here we have job advertisements. In this day and age, you will rarely see paper job advertisements in the national media. It's more popular in local press for maybe part-time or local roles. Recruitment agencies are still a massive feature in the Irish market. They did get a bad rep, I suppose, during the Celtic Tiger, the economic boom. There was a proliferation and an expansion of recruitment agencies. Very much a target-driven environment. They get a percentage of your first year's salary. That can be from 12% anywhere up to 25%. Depending on how, I suppose, skilled or how experienced or how niche your skills are. Speculative applications, it's very much a culture of different companies. It's case by case. Some companies won't take speculative applications. They will only take a CV based on what's advertised at the moment, and you have to link it to that actual job. Again, smaller organizations will take speculative applications, and there is a very healthy referral system in all companies, which we might touch on later. So then here is LinkedIn. It sits within social media, but it's very much on the more professional side of social media. And then finally, you have your traditional networking and using contacts, which we would say is probably the most impactful method for finding a role, and we might talk about that in a moment. Okay, so moving. So why use LinkedIn? Here's some very good reasons, top 10 reasons for using LinkedIn. It's where most people you meet professionally go to connect with you. So the day of business cards is very much in the past. If you have a nice engagement with somebody and there's a job opportunity or an expansion happening in a company, and you want to, I suppose, continue that conversation, but somebody has to leave, etc., you'll very often hear them say, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, connect with me in LinkedIn. So it is the place where people professionally link in and connect in this day and age. You need to have a large network so that you can use it later. So we would say to undergrad, for example, University of Limerick students, that final year is probably leaving it a little bit late to start to build a LinkedIn profile. The ideal time would be probably the minute they arrive in university. They get prepared for an internship in year 3, where they go out to the market, and that's preferably where they can start building those connections on LinkedIn. They can also, I suppose, when they come back retrospectively, connect with people, but it is better to connect in real time, so that people can, I suppose, remember their interaction with you. Next, many recruiters use it to vet and source candidates. I would even actually say that all recruiters use it to vet and source candidates. There is actually new jobs that have sprung up in companies and agencies called sourcers, or online sourcers. These people basically filter LinkedIn all day long, and they give over what's called a qualified list to a recruiter, based on the criteria, skills and competencies that are required. The engagement can be fantastic if you're active on the platform. So one of the, I suppose, most common criticisms I would get if I was doing a session on LinkedIn is I have a LinkedIn account for years, but it's never really done anything. Nobody's ever got in touch with me. So, you know, when I hear a criticism like that, my very first question is, well, how active are you on the platform? Are you on it on a daily, weekly basis? Very often the person will say, no, I haven't gone near it. And therein lies the reason. You know, so LinkedIn has to be in a habitual practice that you build on a daily and weekly basis. It's great for alumni networking and to keep tabs on your friends and classmates. So if you're doing a course or doing distance learning, for example, you might get to see all your classmates. We would encourage in UL that everybody connect with their classmates. It mightn't be very opportunistic at the moment, but these people will eventually get employed in various organizations, many of which could become your target organization of choice in the future. And it's good to have a connection when you need it. It's a great place to look for a job and get automated job alerts, and we'll look at that later. So LinkedIn will curate, I suppose, jobs that it feels will suit you based on your search criteria, so you don't have to be going into LinkedIn. They'll automate the process for you by email or InMail, which is the email system inside LinkedIn. And you know, this is done, I suppose, by search engine optimization, by bots, algorithms in the background. It's a good place to host your recommendations. So these are positive references online. So very often we have great reference from past employers. Maybe once upon a time you'd ask them to write a written reference for you, which is kept on your laptop, only ever gets to see the light of day when you're at final round and an employer asks to see it. By hosting these positive references from previous employers on LinkedIn, they can be used 24/7, they can be seen 24/7, and very often it can be the tipping point for an organisation to decide to give you the final seat at interview. So your referees do need to have a LinkedIn account, and you will probably be best advised to send an email first, and then you'll find a link just under your photo on the profile where you request them to furnish you with an online reference for LinkedIn. The next point, opportunities come to you. Recruiters look for passive candidates. Okay, so I suppose I'm long enough in recruitment to remember print advertisements where we would put ads in newspapers back in the day, and we would sit and wait for, I suppose, candidates to apply. So it's very much in the digital age a two-way street now. So you can be working, happily employed, and companies can still find and approach you through LinkedIn. So this is a common practice now. All of the big brands do this, and I suppose it's only going to increase in the future. The next point there, it's an excellent news source. So it's great to get it's a great product to see what's happening in the marketplace. Obviously, the larger your network, the more connections you have, the more you will see different events being posted from different companies. These are not things you will see in RTE or you'll see in a newspaper. These are just everyday events, which gives you a great feel for the culture of these organizations. It's kind of like a behind the scenes view of various companies. Finally, it's an excellent research tool, especially before an interview. We would recommend that if you get an invite for interview, you'll normally have a time and a place, and you'll normally have the names of the interviewers. Okay, so it could be someone from HR, and it could be a technical person from that department. It would be well advised to go into LinkedIn and have a look at their background and see, is it similar to your own? Perhaps they worked in an organization you've worked in, perhaps they've done a similar degree as you, etc. Some people are a bit concerned that they've heard that, when you look at someone's profile, that they can see that you've used the profile. Yes, depending on their settings, that's possible for people, that they can see that you looked at their profile. But for companies, we have had discussions with employers in relation to this, and they're very comfortable with people looking at their profile that are coming in for interview, and they just view that as doing your market research. So it's perfectly fine, perfectly normal. Okay, so let's just start building the best profile, LinkedIn profile you possibly can. And these are my tips. Okay, 12 tips. So I'm just going to start from the top, if you can imagine, the top of a LinkedIn profile, right down to the bottom. Number one, don't cut and paste your CV. Okay, you are writing for the internet, so it's best to write in short blocks of copy, a couple of lines, etc. It's very important to remember that you're writing for the internet, and this is social media, even though it's at the professional end of the spectrum. So the language can be a little bit less formal, particularly in the summary, the introduction part, which we'll discuss in a moment. Tip 2, upload a profile photo. Very, very important, especially for first impressions, to upload the best photo you possibly can. With the smartphones that are on the market now, there's no excuse. The resolution is very, very high. Our recommendation would be to have a clear background near natural light, where I'm sitting here beside a window, and just taking a picture probably from mid-chest to just a little bit higher above your head. Our recommendation is that you would dress for your target market. So if you're in law or banking, and suits are the norm, well then your LinkedIn profile we'd recommend that you'd wear a suit. If that's multinationals, it's very much maybe open shirt, etc., blouse, so you can dress again for that environment. LinkedIn themselves have done some research, and it's 14 times more likely that your profile will be viewed with a photo rather than without. Unfortunately, you see a lot of people, particularly in the diversity. We see students, you know, cutting and pasting photos from other social media accounts onto LinkedIn. I think we examples here. You can see this lady here at the top. She is very much out of focus. It's on a night out. You can see somebody's arm there, and it's cropped, so that's not exactly professional. This lady is very interested in hill walking. You know, it's way too far away here. You can't even see, you know, this candidate's face. Himself there is on the holidays in Greece, and again, that is just not appropriate. This last one is the most common, and it's particularly in the Irish market, and it's the wedding photo, where I suppose we're all dressed up and feel we're looking at best. But this particular photo, I think the sun was to the back, and this gentleman's face is shaded. So again, not a recommended profile photo for LinkedIn. So as I said earlier, it's better to sit with a neutral background, close to natural light, and anyone with a half decent smartphone should be able to help you in that respect. Next tip number 3 is to write a summary. So this is the summary here. It's your career story. It also is known as the About You section, and it sits just below your photo. I actually had a contact of mine working in LinkedIn and was fortunate enough to be invited in, and I can remember asking the lady about this section in particular, and so the following, I suppose, comments come directly from LinkedIn themselves. So the recommendation is that you would write your story in first person. This should be the next best introduction to meeting, to a virtual meeting with yourself. So you can imagine if somebody invited you, they had a job opportunity, they're in the next room, you go in, you shake hands. That gives you some idea of where you're going to begin here. So it's your story to date. You know, you might talk about early education, your decision to take on a certain educational path, your early career work-wise, where that led to today, and then beyond today, what your objectives are. You have 2,000 characters, it's 400 words, but remember, it is a summary, so to try and keep it a paragraph or 2, 3, perhaps at max, maybe 5 lines each. Do go ahead and express a little personality. You know, we have a lot of international students in UL, and it's a huge decision to travel the other side of the world. So it takes a lot of resilience and a lot of courage. And I think it's authentic to talk about those big life decisions, and it makes it a more impactful read for potential employers. Insert some keyword tags. So I suppose some clever LinkedIn profile candidates might say at the end of their story, my skill set includes, and they will literally have a number of keywords that will be picked up by search engines, and then I suppose return their profile higher in the lists. Where you get those keywords, probably you will find them in your target job description for roles that you're interested in at the moment. So tip 4 is your professional headline. This is about 1.5 lines of A4 page. It's 120 characters, and it sits just under your name at the very top of your LinkedIn profile. If you don't maybe pay much attention to it, it'll auto-populate what's in your education currently, or your current role. This is important in that this card is what follows you around on LinkedIn. If you comment, if you like, if you post on people's walls, all they see is this card. And it's very important that the headline has some impact, particularly for passive traffic and potential from organizations or individuals. I'll show you, I suppose, what we would suggest to students here in UL. So it's writing for the internet, so you're allowed to abbreviate. you have, I suppose, a maximum of 120 characters. Here's just an example. Somebody's doing an international management MSc at UL. They're showcasing that they have 9 months internship in Dell, and then they're telling, I suppose, the eyes that have come across this profile card that they're available for a role at a particular date. Here we have someone doing a master's. They're showcasing that they have a business undergrad coupled with a HR master's. So very quickly for the HR audience, they get a feel for this candidate, and they're doing a thesis on big data and recruitment. So that could be a tipping point. That could be enough for a HR manager to click in and spend a little bit longer and maybe remember the name if they're going sourcing for graduates in the future, and so on. Okay. So that's your LinkedIn headline, which sits just directly under your photo. Tip 5, how do you know when your profile is finished? So LinkedIn gives a guide in relation to how complete your profile is. You start off here, and it's called a profile meter. It's some instructions there to show you how you can find that, but you start off as a beginner. You move to intermediate, advanced, and expert, and then you get finally to all-star status. That doesn't mean you stop and you never have to update your LinkedIn profile, but it just gives you an idea where that, you know, when have I done enough. Now, to get an all-star profile, you need to add a profile photo, list a minimum of 2 positions with descriptions, have 5 or more skills on your profile, write a summary about yourself, fill out your industry, add your education, and have 50 or more connections. Okay, so that's a good goal, I suppose, for anyone who is serious about developing the best profile they possibly can. And another point to make before we go on to the next tip is showcasing your skills or your specialities. So there's a skills section in LinkedIn, and you're allowed to upload 50 skills. When this initially was rolled out, there was no endorsement of these skills by other individuals. You simply had your list of skills there. I wasn't too focused on it myself. And then they added a feature where other connections, not necessarily previous bosses, but work colleagues or any other connections, could start endorsing these skills. Again, I didn't really see the point of this. It felt like a mutual appreciation setup. I tell you you're good, or I endorse that skill and you endorse back. But then they announced that they were linking the skills and endorsements, the amount of endorsements, to their ranking. So like any product that you look for on the internet, if you go put something into Google, you'll normally find what you're looking for, you know, in the first 5 to 7 pages. Similarly with LinkedIn, if the amount of endorsements is going to help rank you in relation to the returned search by organizations for certain skills, then it is in your interest to take it seriously. How do you increase your endorsements? It's reciprocal. So if you start to endorse other people, they'll start to endorse you back. Okay, and again, it'll take time for this to organically grow, and it'll certainly help you get seen and get noticed. So as we just said, tip 6 is to be found. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about SEO in a moment. It's very, very important to view LinkedIn in 2 ways. Okay, one is that you're developing your online portfolio. So this is the best website, professional website that you can build. But like any website, if you can have all the bells and whistles, but if nobody comes to see it, then it's a waste of time. So you need to understand how to get that website seen on, I suppose, the digital market, as it's called. So search engine optimization is very important in relation to that, and that reflects back on, if you remember in your summary or about you section, your story, some candidates put skill set. My skill set includes, and they have tags at the end of their story. The previous section I talked about on skills, You can input up to 50 skills, and it would be a useful exercise to look at the job advertisements that you're interested in and just look at the keywords and reflect back, are those keywords matched on my profile. Tip number 7, customize your LinkedIn profile URL. Okay, so this is the URL that comes up at the top for your profile. It's unique to you. It's auto-generated when you set up a LinkedIn profile. So it'll have a string of letters and numbers that are quite long. And we would suggest, when you're happy with your LinkedIn profile, that you would put that URL up on top of your CV. And you really don't want a string of letters and numbers. So it's a more aesthetically pleasing to have your name. Depending on how common or uncommon your name will depend, like claiming a unique Gmail, for example, whether it's available on LinkedIn. So you can just Google how to customize your LinkedIn URL, and then I suppose it's yours to keep for the future. Tip 8, you can curate and change the profile. So the profile you see, the template you see in LinkedIn is interchangeable. You can bring in projects, courses, publications. Once you hit edit profile, all of these features become available. So it's another option, again, to make your profile more appealing. Tip 9, I mentioned my view on LinkedIn that it is like your personal portfolio. As such, like any portfolio, it is more impactful if it's not just black and white text. You can see the amount of media here that you can add to LinkedIn: a document, a photo, a link to a website, video, a presentation. So we would encourage at the UL Career Service that students do put a bit of time putting some visual media up on their LinkedIn profile. And research has shown that people will spend a lot longer on your profile, and you will be remembered for potential opportunities if people spend more time on your profile. Okay, so that's tip 9, to add visual content. Tip 10 is to build a network. Very often when we're doing lectures in UL, particularly students, they might say that they don't have a network. So I would always say that the mobile phone in your pocket is your network. So your list on that mobile phone, you have to think that is my network, and you have to cross-reference those numbers and names with the people who have LinkedIn profiles. When you set up your LinkedIn account, it also gives you the opportunity to sync all of your email contacts with the LinkedIn platform. Now, this is absolutely every single email you've received, and it does it very, very quickly. Not too sure if every email, if you want to connect with that amount of people, but the feature is there. Definitely, we've talked about the alumni previously. And I would retrospectively go back to previous courses that you have attended and start linking in with those people. And as it says here, spend 15 to 30 minutes each week building that profile. It's not going to, building those connections, it's not going to happen overnight. It has to become a habit. Tip 11 is to join LinkedIn groups. Anybody on LinkedIn can build a group. Most of them are professional based. Some are not. Some, for example, if we have students going abroad, I would always say, look for a LinkedIn group in relation to Irish in Singapore or Irish in San Francisco, etc. You will see a lot of professional bodies, depending on what discipline you're studying. The professional networking bodies will definitely have a group on LinkedIn. Our own LinkedIn group there is University of Limerick Career Service, and there's a University of Limerick alumni, so we'd encourage you to join those. Finally, tip 12, companies and organizations. So a lot of companies and organizations have their own pages on LinkedIn. Many of them give tips on their recruitment process, There's a lot of news there. They have everything in one place, the jobs that they have open. So if you do have a target list of companies, simply just go into LinkedIn and follow those companies. I think it looks good when you're coming up for an interview with a particular company, that they can see from your profile that you've been following their story, perhaps through LinkedIn for a while. If you're wondering what groups relate to you, to what you're studying, look on LinkedIn for more mature LinkedIn accounts relating to your field. Just scroll down to the bottom. You will see very quickly, after looking at a few profiles, the more popular groups that you should join. Okay, so nearly there. Finally, I'm going to just showcase some of the features and products and tools that are built into LinkedIn. First one would be the job search, and that has it's a little suitcase here on the top left menu. I might have mentioned before, as you search for jobs, it offers you an alert function for that, so you don't have to keep searching for it again. It'll auto-populate and send those inside into your email or your own private email. You can set up how frequently you'd like that to happen. Targeted job notifications, you can turn them on or off. As I said, they can come in on a daily or weekly basis. The alumni feature, how to find that, you just type in the university. For ourselves, University of Limerick, you'll get to the University of Limerick landing page. I think it might be one on the next one. Here's one here, and alumni is down the end there. A very, very interesting thing to do, particularly for the course you might be studying in UL at the moment, just to see what previous years, where they have landed. That'll give you ideas on some companies to target. Indeed, some of the more, I suppose, proactive students are getting contacts of alumni through LinkedIn, and they are reaching out to them, asking them, you know, if they had 2 or 3 minutes this week or next to take a call. Any advice, you know, would be welcome. So that's very, very powerful networking tool on LinkedIn. Very, very interesting. That's something you could be doing to build your market knowledge. Laptop in front of the TV, just having a look at other people's career paths. That'll educate you and offer up some ideas that you mightn't have thought of yourself. Okay, so that's the alumni feature. Now, looking at sharing content. So I gave you my ideas in relation to LinkedIn. There's two sides to the coin. There's the side where you build that profile and make it look like the best LinkedIn profile you can, and then the other side is make sure that that profile gets seen. So, you know, you're posting an update, a photo, or publishing a post to share those at the right time. You can see here recommendation for Facebook is 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Twitter 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. LinkedIn tends to be before meetings, so 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So you'll see, I used to work in Dublin, you know, I used to see them on the train, commuters, and they'd be on LinkedIn. And when I worked in an open plan office in multinational, again, before meetings, you would look around, you'd see the screens, you'd see people on LinkedIn. So if you want to be seen, you want to raise your profile, you know, you might want to bookmark. This is a great app called Flipboard for any articles in relation to your field of study. If you have a Gmail, Google will, you can put in alerts, and anything that's in relation to what you're studying that hits the internet, it'll be emailed to you. That can be, you can make that as local as you like, Irish, Limerick, Galway, Dublin, etc. And Twitter again is great for just bookmarking particular articles that people have shared in your domain. I think there might be another slide here. Yeah, just looking at the days of the week and the amount of engagement by day and time for LinkedIn. So you can see here early morning and then around lunchtime. Okay, so later in the day. So and it tends to change from day to day. Just as you're getting, I suppose, more active on LinkedIn, you might want some encouragement that the work that you're putting into LinkedIn, that it's having an effect. And you should monitor the data, and LinkedIn will give you a host of data points: who has viewed, where they're from. It gives you, or expands the amount of feedback depending on your privacy levels. So we'll talk about those in a moment. These are your privacy settings here. So you just go to your little photo here in the top right hand corner, hit privacy settings, and these are your options. How others see your profile and LinkedIn information, how others see your LinkedIn activity, how LinkedIn uses your data, your job seeking preferences, and blocking potential profiles or hiding, etc. So yeah, you can edit those. I mean, our recommendation would, you want to be found. It is a professional platform. You'd want to make yourself as visible as possible. Sometimes if you're maybe working on your profile, there is a broadcast feature where LinkedIn broadcasts your activity. So Brendan, myself, I updated my education, and it'll send that out to all my connections. Not a problem if you're only starting, you don't have too many connections, but if you have built connections and now you're doing some work, maybe after watching this slide deck, you might want to go into edit privacy settings and just turn off the broadcast feature, but just to remember to turn it back on when you're finished updating your profile. And there's the button, just a reminder to turn it on and off, just as I mentioned, editing there. So that's it. That is LinkedIn. We talked about some of the reasons to get active on LinkedIn. I gave you my top 12 tips to make the best profile you possibly can. And then I talked about getting that profile seen and out on the airwaves. Just as a matter of interest, these are some of the favorite LinkedIn functions that people like on LinkedIn. They love to see, or are very curious who has viewed their profile, people that they may know, direct messaging,